Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Cheryl Wilsey. I'm a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist here to help highly sensitive and neurodivergent people navigate their healing journey through understanding personal and collective trauma. Today I'm going to be answering the question, why are ADHDers restless? So we're going to be looking at this through both a biological and a trauma-informed lens. And I'm also going to be speaking about how you can begin to heal this inner restlessness so that you can find more inner peace in your life. So the first reason why ADHDers can feel restless is because of lower levels of dopamine in the prefrontal cortex. So these executive functioning challenges can also lead to a kind of dopamine seeking. This is when you're looking for that next activity to do to try to stimulate your brain. Maybe you're looking for a novel experience or something that's going to feel exciting. And it can be really challenging for ADHDers to find that just the right amount of stimulation that kind of allows your nervous system to feel soothed, that allows you to feel alert and engaged, but also calm and peaceful inside. So I just want to acknowledge that there is a real neurobiological aspect to the restlessness in ADHD. This is something that's important to understand so that you can validate there is a real biological difference that's happening inside your brain that makes you feel this way. Maybe you can have more compassion and less judgment for yourself. And it's also important to understand in case you're considering taking medication as part of your healing journey. So the second reason why ADHDers can feel restless is because of trauma. And trauma creates a disconnection from your body. So first, let's have a deeper look at what trauma actually is. Now, Dr. Gabor Mate has really helped me with my understanding of trauma. And he looks at trauma as a process and something that happens inside of us rather than the events that happen to us. So he sees trauma as the wound or the imprint rather than the weapon or the events that happen to you. So I see trauma as this process of disconnection. Now, what does it disconnect you from? Many things. Trauma disconnects you from your authentic self, from your body, from other people, from the natural world, from your joy, and from the present moment. So what does this have to do with feeling restless? Well, it's really common for people with ADHD to feel a sense of disconnection from their intuition and their instincts. Because when you were a child, it's likely that you got in trouble for being really busy, for having big emotions. You may have been told that you're too much or other times that you weren't enough. And because being connected to your body, being really busy, being impulsive, moving a lot got you into trouble, you learn to disconnect from that, to shut that down. So that's especially common for people who have a strong people-pleasing part of them that really needs to feel liked and accepted and validated by others. This is how that hyperactivity and impulsivity can be really shut down and internalized. This can be especially prominent for women who can be socially conditioned more to be more people-pleasing, caretaking, to be more compliant, to put other people's needs ahead of their own. So you disconnect from your body because if you're connected to your body and moving as much as you know you need to be, you're going to get in trouble. And so what happens is that later on in life, people are a lot more likely to present with really high levels of anxiety and restlessness. So being restless and fidgety. And so you may really be disconnected from how your body wants to naturally move. Not a lot of people are actually moving as much as their body wants to be. And you might not really have a sense of how your body wants to move. There's a lot of cultural messaging out there about what you should be doing. Like maybe you think you should be at the gym, lifting weights multiple times a week. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's great if you want to lift weights. But is that what you really enjoy doing? Can you really tune into your body and see how it is that you want to move? So you might consider asking yourself some questions like, do I want to move inside or outside? Do I like being in a gym by myself? Do I like taking an exercise class? Do I want to play sports? Do I want to try boxing or kickboxing or martial arts? Do I want to run? Do I want to walk? What level of intensity do I like? So these are a lot of questions that can get you feeling kind of curious about how your body wants to naturally move. Also getting curious about what you're consuming. So how much sugar are you consuming? How much caffeine? And does that really feel supportive for your body? So I think a lot of people in society today in general are really disconnected from their intuition and from their instincts. And this is part of our collective trauma, but it's especially prominent for ADHDers. And for those with the more hyperactive aspect to ADHD, you probably need to move a lot. So just get curious about how your body wants to be moving and where there might be opportunities for trying different types of movement in your life. Now, the third reason why ADHDers can feel restless has to do with excessive busyness, which can actually be a trauma response or a survival response. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about how that works. So obviously we live in a high stress society where there's never a shortage of things to be doing and things to keep you busy and preoccupied. But it's important to get curious about why you're doing that. Why are you busy? And is there an aspect of emotional avoidance? So you might consider asking yourself, what am I afraid or concerned is going to happen if I do slow down? If I am in stillness for a minute? What emotions am I not comfortable feeling? Or do I get overwhelmed because I notice that my mind is always racing? So what is it that you're really uncomfortable feeling if you slow down? And if that's part of what's motivating your excessive busyness, then there's a good chance an aspect of that is a trauma response. Now, ADHDers tend to have more trauma than the average person because you've been getting the message for your entire life that you're too much, that you're not enough, and that the way that you perceive the world, the way that you experience the world is wrong. So there's a lot of shame that gets internalized. There can be a lot of feelings of worthlessness. And there can also be this really intense fear of failure. So that can drive people to be hyper productive. So you constantly have to be producing, working, helping others, being busy, feeling like you're accomplishing something. Now, when we look at this within a cultural framework, you can see how capitalism contributes to this. So capitalism is our economic system that's based in part on the need for constantly increasing rates of economic growth, which means that people have to be more and more productive. So one of the really unhealthy belief systems connected to capitalism is the idea that your worth is based on your productivity. And this can be especially harmful for people who might have trouble working in a traditional way, which is quite common for ADHDers who tend to be very creative, innovative, thinking outside of the box, but don't necessarily fit into those square pegs that society really wants to force you into. So again, you bump up against those feelings of shame and worthlessness, and then you feel like you have to overcompensate by being really productive and helpful. And it's not that there's anything inherently wrong with being productive and helpful, but it's more of what is driving this, and is there an element of emotional avoidance? And where are you losing freedom in your life to be more flexible and to tune into yourself and to really get curious about what is going to bring you joy in your life? And the other aspect of this, another cultural burden that contributes to these feelings of shame and worthlessness for ADHDers is what I would call neurotypical supremacy, which I see as being a subset of the cultural burden of white supremacy, which creates a hierarchy. And in the case of neurotypical supremacy, it puts neurotypical people at the top of the hierarchy and neurodivergent people at the bottom. And of course, this is reinforced by our diagnostic system, which sees ADHD, autism, and other neurodivergent conditions as disorders or deficiencies rather than differences. And this is why I really love the neurodiversity paradigm, because it's depathologizing and it shares that there's this whole wide range of neurological functioning and sees conditions like ADHD and autism as being differences in neurological functioning rather than deficiencies or rather than disorders. So there's a lot happening in the world right now to depathologize neurodivergence. That doesn't change the fact that we live in a culture where it's really common for neurodivergent people to internalize feelings of shame and worthlessness and to feel like we have to engage in these survival strategies. But that doesn't change the fact that we all grew up in a culture where it was really common for people with ADHD to be shamed, to be judged, to be told that they're irresponsible or lazy, and to not get the supports that they need to work with their neurological differences. So how do we approach healing from this? Well, the first thing that you can do is notice when you're in judgment of yourself. See if you can start to validate your emotional experiences, your shame. This pain is here for a reason. It's going to help if you can work on shifting your judgment to compassion and just recognizing that it's possible that you may need individual therapy too. I love IFS therapy. Internal family systems therapy is very helpful for healing trauma. I think especially for neurodivergent people. I'm happy to share more about how IFS can be helpful for neurodivergent people in future videos. Until then, I'd love to hear from you. How did this video land for you? And what changes are you looking forward to making to address your restlessness and try to find more inner peace? Thanks for listening.